This is a crap sandwich, and every single piece of the sandwich is worse and worse and worse.
Raising the minimum wage won't force corporate America to pay more. If large corporations aren't already raising their wage, they'll simply pass that cost on to consumers.
We keep hearing from folks that this is economically smart to have a starvation level wage. Maybe it is in some factory in another country where they're not paying workers what they ought to be paid, but here we should not say paying workers less than what they deserve is a part of a good economic strategy. It frankly makes no sense.
And if we really want to set the precedent that the standard for being impeached is this amorphous dereliction of duty, then I would ask us to pick up a mirror and ask, do we think it's derelict of our duty when members of this body reject common sense gun safety? Should my colleagues be impeached for being derelict in their duty? The same people who didn't want to wear a mask want to force a mammogram for pregnant people. Same people. These are the same folks. And you would not be like, nobody could fault you for thinking that these are separate people. The anti-mandate people, I remember coming in this building at the height of a deadly pandemic. None of us knew what was going on. And they wanted to open up one thing after another. I remember that. Dog groomers, we had to open up the zoo. But these are the same people that want to close down abortion clinics. Same people. You might be confused, but it's the same people. And then these are the same people who've got up here one after another. They hop up, and they're pro-life. They are pro-life. My colleagues spoke, many of my colleagues on my side of the aisle spoke very passionately about what pro-life actually looks like. What pro-life actually looks like, and if the gentlewoman wants to speak, there's a microphone, but please don't speak during my time. Don't speak during my time. We are trying to ram through a laundry list of awful ideas through the constitutional amendment process. It is wrong. And I think that many people on this side of the aisle, I think you know that it's wrong. I know how you're going to vote, but I think some of you deep down know that you're wrong. And there are a lot of folks who are going to go back to their districts and act like they are a friend to women. But they're silent in this building, and they're going to go along to get along and vote for this, knowing good and well it's the wrong thing to do. For folks who are in the majority party, who know that this is the wrong way to go, get some steel in your spine. Say no. What is done here today has been called many names: a sham, a political stunt, a distraction, a disgrace. But what I call it today, Mr. Speaker, is simply sad. Should you be impeached for the votes that I've seen taken on this floor that take food literally out of the mouths of the most vulnerable people in our communities, especially in cities like Philadelphia? And if we want to look at who is violating oaths of office, people in this body ought to look in the mirror. It's easy to get up here and read a name of somebody from a newspaper article that you read and suggest that that person's loss can be used for your political gain to pursue this senseless, nonsensical impeachment. It's a different thing altogether to do what I have done with my constituents, to sit down with law enforcement, to sit down with community members, to sit down with victims and perpetrators of crime, to talk about how we craft serious solutions. You're right, this building has a lot of power. Why aren't we using that power to actually fix what is broken? If you seriously believe that impeaching one elected official is going to fix all crime in Philadelphia, then I have a bridge to sell you, my friends. And I'm charging tax if you are that naive. I hope that today we add some more names on this board and don't continue down this path of ignoring voters and ignoring the truth of what is causing the violence that we are seeing. Nobody from Philadelphia, needs a lecture from any Republican in this building about crime in our communities. Every person who represents Philadelphia knows all too well about what it means to call a constituent who has lost a loved one, hold their hands as they cry and mourn their loved ones. Many of us have gone to numerous funerals of people who have lost their lives. We do not need to be lectured by you on what is happening in our neighborhoods.
So many of the arguments that you've heard today, they are difficult to decipher because, in my opinion, Mr. Speaker, they don't make a lot of sense. So in one breath, you've heard, Mr. Speaker, from previous speakers that nobody pays the minimum wage. Everybody pays above the minimum wage. If that is true, then what fear do you have of raising the minimum wage? We've also heard, Mr. Speaker, that raising the minimum wage, the Chicken Little song and dance is out again, the sky is gonna fall, there will be no more jobs. Why hasn't that happened in West Virginia? Why hasn't that happened in Ohio? Why hasn't that happened in Delaware? Why hasn't that happened in New Jersey? Why hasn't that happened in New York? Why haven't we seen our border states flooding in to Pennsylvania because we still pay $7.25, which really we should stop calling a minimum wage. It is a starvation level wage. It is unconscionable. It's unconscionable. A part of what drives our economy's growth is in large part consumer spending. What is going to happen if we raise the minimum wage? There are going to be a lot of folks who are going to actually have a little bit of wiggle room to go out and eat at that restaurant. Somebody's going to be able to buy the basic supplies and necessities, which is what most low-wage workers do. They invest that money right back into their communities, buying things like food for their families, buying things like clothes for their kids who are getting ready to go back to school. I know they just got out, but parents are waiting for them to go back into school very soon. We know that right now, we're in a position to do what has not been done in this body. And today you're hearing from the minority party all the things that we could do in lieu of raising the minimum wage that could help low-wage workers. You had over a decade, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you do it? But now when we're bringing up an actual solution, you have all the part-time economists who want to come in and tell us what this is going to do for our economy. What this is going to do, plain and simple, is to say that every job has a level of dignity, and that dignity should be reflected in the paycheck. That dignity should be reflected in the paycheck. And I want to make one final point, Mr. Speaker, when we talk about the economy. The economy is not this amorphous thing that we are just supposed to be here at the altar of. The economy is people. The economy that we're talking about is people. People who right now, too often than not, don't even have enough savings to cover an accident on their car or a medical expense should it happen. People who've had to work more than one job because $7.25 is not nearly enough. People who are sick and tired of politicians promising to do something and never delivering. Well, guess what? House Democrats are delivering. I urge a yes vote.